miscommunications, mishaps, tech glitches, travel plans gone awry, sudden reversals. It must be Mercury retrograde, right? But what exactly is Mercury retrograde? And is all the hype actually warranted? Stick around. That's what we're going to talk about in today's Astro Nugget. Hi, I'm Lara. Thanks for being here. You can find me over at my website, astrologymaven.com, and you can find me here on YouTube every week where I do these short Astro Nuggets where we cover a specific topic or a question. And every second week, you can find me here doing horoscopes for all the new and full moons. So I hope that you get some value from what you find here. And if you do, let me know by hitting the like button. Okay, so you've probably seen all the memes blaming all the things on Mercury retrograde. But does Mercury really deserve the bad press that it gets? The short answer is, I don't think so. But Mercury retrograde shouldn't just be dismissed as some silly trope that we can blame all our problems on a few times a year. There are definitely things to know and to take into consideration during a Mercury retrograde, and I'm going to cover all of that. I'm going to explain what Mercury retrograde is and how we can handle it. So first off, as a planet, Mercury is connected to things like our communications, our thinking, learning, information, mobility, moving parts, technology, commerce. It is considered a neutral planet. So if you're somebody who's familiar with, the morality types, like if you play D&D or something, Mercury would be considered true neutral, morally speaking. In mythology, Mercury, known as Hermes as well, was the messenger of the gods and the only one who could travel freely between the worlds. On a site called Mythopedia, they describe Mercury as such. Wily trickster. Mercury was the Roman god of commerce, communication, and travel, the patron of thieves, messengers, and merchants. He was also responsible for conveying souls to the underworld. As the chief messenger of the gods, Mercury controlled the flow of information and often used this position to his advantage, which is why Mercury gets the title of being the trickster, right? Because Mercury in mythology had access to all the information and could use it to its own benefit. So astronomically speaking, Mercury is the smallest and the innermost planet. So meaning it's closest to us here on Earth, aside from the moon, right? We're not counting the sun and the moon, which are the luminaries. But it's the closest planet. It's also the fastest moving planet, not including the moon. Mercury takes about 88 days to orbit, to circle the sun. And on average, it spends about 2 weeks in each zodiac sign, except for when it retrogrades. Astrologically speaking, Mercury rules the signs of Virgo and Gemini. Both of those signs are mutable, meaning when we're looking at the mutable signs, they're the signs that occupy sort of that transitional place, between the seasons when we're transitioning from one season to another. And so therefore, they can be quite changeable, adaptable, but also, unpredictable. So Virgo is an earth sign. Gemini is an air sign. And this dual rulership, so meaning Mercury rules those two signs, it speaks to the nature of Mercury. Gemini is about gathering and spreading information, like scattered seeds on the wind, right? That's a good analogy, being an air sign. But Virgo is more about taking in the information and then categorizing it and separating it into what's useful and what's not. That whole idea of Virgo separating the wheat from the chaff. So it's more like, rather than scattering seeds to the wind, it's more like planting an organized garden, right? When we're talking about what Mercury does in either of those signs. Mercury retrogrades 3 to 4 times a year, every year, for a few weeks at a time. But what does that even mean? What does retrograde even mean? Well, from our perspective here on Earth, the planet appears to slow down, change directions, and start moving backwards. Then it slows down, stops, and moves forwards again. But that's just an optical illusion. And in fact, all of the planets, not the luminaries, but all of the planets do this. They retrograde. But because Mercury is the planet that retrogrades most often, it's the one that we tend to talk about and know about the most. So Mercury can never be more than 28 degrees from the sun. That's the farthest away it ever travels from the sun. And whenever it reaches that farthest distance from the sun, it stops and changes direction. Or at least that's how it appears to our eyes here on Earth. But like I said, that's just an optical illusion. And so think of it like this. You're walking down a path and suddenly you realize you forgot something that you need. So you turn around, you go back to the place that you left the thing, and then you grab it and you carry on again. So you're covering the same ground 3 times in total. And maybe when you are traveling over that same ground again, things look a little different on the second and third passes. Maybe you notice things, excuse me, that you hadn't noticed before. This is what Mercury does. It travels over the same degrees of the zodiac 3 times during a retrograde period. So, like I said, think of it. You're walking to a destination. You remember something that you forgot. You have to go back and get it, and then you have to go forward and continue on your way again. That is what a retrograde is. And although the actual retrograde period spans about 3 weeks or so, there's also a pre and post shadow period of about 2 to 3 weeks when Mercury is either slowing down, that would be the pre-shadow period, or speeding up, that's the post period. And during those periods, it's covering ground that it will revisit during the pre-shadow period or has already visited during the post-retrograde period. So once it clears those specific degrees, then it's smoother sailing for Mercury, right? It's onto new territory, or any planet that is in retrograde, going through this retrograde phase. The specific days surrounding that actual pivoting, right? That actual stopping and changing direction, at least from our perspective, tend to be the times when the energy is most amplified. It's kind of like Mercury, in this case, is giving us a poke in the ribs as to what the particular retrograde is about for us. So generally, Mercury will retrograde in signs of the same element during any given year. But sometimes there's an overlap. Often there's an overlap. So for example, in 2020, all of the Mercury retrogrades began in water signs. So the water signs are Scorpio, Cancer, Pisces. And then a couple of those retrogrades, Mercury went back into an air sign for a little bit. In 2021, we had 2 retrogrades fully in air signs and 1 fully in a water sign. And then in 2022, which is the year this video is published, all of the retrogrades begin in air and then they all retrograde back into Earth. It just so happens that in 2022, there are 4 retrograde periods, not 3. So the very last one, which actually happens on December 29th, 2022, will be fully in Earth. And it takes us into 2023. So that's how that works. You can see mostly in one element, but sometimes there's overlap. So now that you know about the astronomy and the astrology, how do you apply this information to your own life and to your own natal chart or birth chart? Well, first off, when we see a Mercury retrograde period coming, we know that it's time to tap the brakes, to slow down and take stock, to expect delays and speed bumps, to be mindful that we might need to gather some more information before we push ahead. And we also are reminded or tuned into the fact that we might have to revisit the past in some way during these retrograde periods so that we can tie up loose ends or we can take care of something that we've left unattended. We might even see people and experiences from the past coming back into our lives and into our awareness during a retrograde period. So the idea here is to, like I said, slow down and not push ahead. In our modern busy lives, we're constantly in this state of forward motion. And these retrograde periods happen to remind us that it can't all be, one way all the time. It can't all be a push. There needs to be an ebb and flow. There needs to be rest periods where we stop and reflect on things and review things and revisit things and revise things, that kind of, all those words are attached to retrograde periods. So the other way we apply this to our personal lives, even more specifically, is that we look at the area of our birth chart that the retrograde is happening in. So meaning the house, right? Or the houses, if it's going from one sign to another, if it's retrograding, for example, from air to earth, then we look at the two houses that are occupied by the signs that Mercury is going to be traveling in during the retrograde period. And we get a sense, right? We get information about what the specific life themes or areas we should be focusing on or concentrating on regarding the Mercury retrograde period. So let me give you an example. If you're a Virgo rising, right? So I am using whole sign houses here as well. You should know that. If you are a Virgo rising and Mercury is retrograding in Gemini, we're just about to have that in real time here as I'm recording this video. Actually, Mercury has just retrograded yesterday in Gemini. So as a Virgo rising, this is happening in your 10th house. The 10th house is all about your public life, your reputation, the legacy you wish to leave, your career ambitions, that sort of thing. So these are the themes that Mercury wants you to take stock of, to revisit, revise, review, reflect on, all of that. But Mercury in this particular case is also going to tip back into Taurus because it's retrograding all the way back into Taurus before it stops, turns around, and moves forward again. So those themes will also be incorporated, right? Taurus for a Virgo rising, for example, is the 9th house, 9th whole sign house. So therefore, there may be more learning or perhaps travel or a change of your paradigm or worldview that will impact your career or your public life. There may be ideas, information, social situations, right? Mercury in Gemini, an air sign, that will require a stronger foundation, Taurus, an earth sign, before you can move ahead again or kind of like full speed ahead, right? So that's how that works. And that's how you apply it to your own birth chart. All right. I hope you found this video helpful. If you're looking for further astro insight, then please head over to my website, astrologymaven.com. And when you go over there and you sign up for my email list, you can get my free guide to working with the moon. And I also have a course on offer that can help you really lay a strong foundation on which to build your own astrological knowledge.